Howdy, folks. Happy Trump Day. Oh, and most importantly, happy birthday to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And also to the loser, Robbie Lee. Rest in piss, bozo. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was despised by the Black Panthers at the end of his life because he decided to widen his limited hangout into all Americans. And he was a genuine hero, and he genuinely did a lot of good. And CIA killed him and tried to humiliate him, tried to kill him multiple times, eventually did. And, well, they tried to get him to kill himself. Everyone knows about that. But who knows how many times, they tried to assassinate him before the bullet actually went off. It is what it is. A lot of great men have had assassination attempts levied on them, and some of them have been successful. Unfortunately, like Kennedy. But speaking of which, I really hope that RFK does real good. I really hope that JD Vance does real good. I hope that Tulsi Gabbard has a narrowed spear of awareness, and I hope that Trump keeps his dignity and his decency and doesn't allow people to whisper chaotic evils in his ear. Right. If for no other reason, learn history to get better at making racist jokes. If you don't, you'll blurt shit out like, people outside my country are trying to eat my pets. Like a fucking crazy person. You gotta specify, well, it's the Koreans that eat dogs, and it's the Chinese that eat cats, and it's the, tum, 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 instead of everybody outside of my country is coming directly into my home to try and eat my pet. That, it's not good. Even if there is Yiddish being whispered in your walls, you might not want to tell people. You might want to properly structure your argument there. I'm glad the Germans lost at the end of the day. I'm not happy with how they were and the Japanese were treated. That's severely, severely wrong. But I can tell by the fact that the 400 years of rolling genocide could not be divinely pardoned by Pope Pius XI and the Italian fascist government. It couldn't. I could tell for a fact that if the Germans had won, they would have continued to make life a living hell for their own people and making life like a meat grinder for the people that they don't consider to be their own, which at the end of the day could have been anybody who had the unluckiness to have their particular genes manifest black hair instead of yellow. Because if you have blonde hair, you have your genes are very closely related to people with red hair. So you have a very, very likely chance of giving birth to red-headed babies or even black-haired babies if you have blonde hair. It's just how the genes and the Punnett squares, if you ever studied Punnett squares, work. You have recessive genes, you have dominant genes, but you also have, in the specific genes that create blonde hair, red hair. It is what it is. I've said before that Norway is actually the most red-headed place on the earth. That's Norse. That's as German as you get at the end of the day. Is the last remnants of the Gothic culture that the Germans actually came from, when all the rest of the Germans had converted to Catholicism from Charlemagne and joined the Holy Roman Empire of East Francia. West Francia is France, Middle Francia is nothing. I guess Burgundy, but that is like a shifting mass of highly migratory Germans who had an extremely complex system of dynastism where they married here and married there and had 3 different forms of state religion that was necessitated by their extreme dynasticism. It's a big thing. I can't sum up Burgundian history in a couple of words. I would strongly suggest reading up on it. It's quite interesting. But as I said, I'm glad that the Nazis lost, because as I've described before on the podcast, it all started with the institution of the Lutheran Bible and the High German language with the Lutheran Bible being attempted to be put as the state language for larger and larger unifying German culture. When, if you know anything about Germany, the Holy Roman Empire was 1,900 moving parts. And the High German language as we know it is only about 200, 250 years old. the specific language of the Lutheran Bible is a different type of German, but it is back then what would be considered High German. I think that changed around the time that Prussia unified Germany into the Imperial Germany, German Empire, otherwise known as the Reich. Now, I'm still not sure what the Reich means. I think that means rich, but it could also mean reach, as in, like, the state, essentially. 80 IQ people screaming, "Kill me before I kill you," are not a good rival. Whether it is Nazis or whether it is jackbooted Antifa thugs. Like, whenever I see those people screaming, fuck you, motherfucker, I'll fuck you up, at people who just simply have a different viewpoint than them, not Ku Klux Klan members burning crosses and whipping around nooses. Like, no, just people who have a different opinion than you. That's not the sort of enemy that you want to have. That's not the sort of person you want to play with, somebody could probably tell Noli can probably get back on YouTube now. Just don't bay for the blood of children. Whether it's Jordan Peterson, whether it's Josh Moon, or whether it's the blue hairs, baying for the blood of their own children. It's not a good look. It's not a good look to scream that you want Jordan to be set on fire when Jordan has the most peaceful track record in the Middle East. It's not a good look. It's not a good look to claim moral superiority and then scream at Elmo and praise child killers absolutely to the hilt. And it's not a good look to not only not care about killing your own people, but to not care about killing your own children. It's the same thing. If you're genuinely pro-life, you're, push that away. I hate to say it, but no. Like, what in the fuck was that DeSantis shit about, man? Like, my governor, Ron DeSantis, putting up that little caricature when I saw you go pro-Vivek, and I saw you say you never want to see Trump again when it was inconvenient. And I haven't seen him in a while. I bet he's back on board. I bet he's celebrating like Ben Shapiro. When people are going to remember that shit. It's in the business that people are going to remember that shit. Just like the shit he did 15, 20 years ago. People are going to remember that shit. Oh, well. It's bringing me no pleasure to criticize him because I used to jump in between criticism of him. And it disgusted me when I continued to do that even after he stabbed me in the back multiple times. But it is what it is. I'm a dog on the Chinese zodiac, don't you know? Gotta look out for them Koreans. Oh, no. No, I love Korea. I love Korea. Korea is wonderful. I genuinely do. I genuinely love Korea. You can only dwell on things you hate for so long before it consumes you, before it becomes you, and then you become a hateable person. It doesn't matter how low-hanging fruit it is. In fact, it's probably even worse. If you choose the low-hanging fruit, the shit that everybody hates, it's just like, well, you see it, you witness it, you absorb it. I've literally seen people employ the same exact tactics that they criticize. And it just goes to show you can only dwell on what you hate for so long before it comes back to bite you. I'm actually sick of the Bass Pro Shop after learning that's in Memphis. Ugh. Fuck that shit. I hate Memphis rap. I hate Memphis culture. Memphis is a center of sin in the South. And, if somebody dropped an atomic bomb on Memphis, I wouldn't lose any sleep. I don't think a heartbeat determines whether there are neurons active or a soul contained in the light therein. Some people say it's 7 weeks. That's when a heartbeat's detected. But is that, is it? And to that metric, why have we always shirked back from sending women to war? We've thought that a woman's life is worth more than a man because they contain with them generations. We all come from a massive chain, unbroken for so long, that went into creating us and our potential. But women represent the ability to link a new section of that chain. And that's exactly why we've always kept them out of the military and stuff like that. You know, people want to bay and whine about rapes and stuff, but raping is not nearly as important as the fact that your culture will dissolve if you send all your women off to war, you see. So it's possible a lot of this DEI this, DEI that is, some people are attaching to it because they got, you know, pragmatic ideals about where women should effectively be in society. They should not, they don't have the same testosterone-fueled bloodlust that men have. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be the ones making the decisions, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't make the world a safer, more empathetic place. Let's light this up. It's going to smell good. All right. Margaret Thatcher was a profoundly evil bitch. Mostly for how she gave massive power to the House Saud and allowed Wahhabism, which is a jihad-centric form of Islam that Saudi Arabia has invented, to metastasize throughout the Middle East. That's exactly where ISIS comes from. ISIS was originally created by the House Saud. They are Wahhabists, and now they've infected all over the place from Khorasan to Egypt. It's insane. I'm sure there's a ISIS presence in the Barbary Coast, but it's probably relatively infrequent outside of the destroyed state of Libya. Rest in peace, Gaddafi. Rest in peace to a real one. You know, Tulsi actually, she's come to bat for Gaddafi in the past, and I thought that was pretty cool because she's very pragmatic and she's very well researched on these things. So if anybody has the ability to use the FISA Act, was it? The Foreign Spying Act. It's Tulsi. Tulsi is the one that I trust more than almost anybody else in that position. You know, Benny Johnson, the commentator guy, he's the spitting image of like a Stone Toss character. If you look at his hair, it looks exactly like the Stone Toss hair. I'm not kidding. Go look at Benny Johnson's hair. It looks exactly like Stone Toss. You know, I might hear, and you might hear, escort choppers every once in a blue moon. You know, but Trump flying back and forth over our general area is going to prevent a tremendous amount of this DeSantis and Sheriff Ivey chicanery that's been implemented, where people can just fly as low as they want over neighborhoods. People have been crashing into power lines and shit. Absolute idiots doing that shit, but they've been encouraged to act chaotically. And now let me take a little detour and explain exactly what I mean over like 10 episodes when I've been talking about what the police do, where they came from, and how that has to do with people making so much noise in these three shifts, in two of the three shifts. It's real estate. It's that simple. As I said, people might think that there's some sort of a prize in racing, but it ultimately goes to the real estate companies because people are being driven out of their houses. People are trying to raise their children in a more peaceful and reasonable area, and so they leave. And I've watched it. I've watched people leave because of the cops encouraging and ignoring. I've literally listened to people. The cops are ignoring their cries for help. The cops are ignoring their cries to come in and prevent the public disturbances. And since 2011, this Florida Supreme Court has said there's no noise ordinance. There's no such thing as a noise ordinance, but if you ever do anything towards any of our friends, we're going to get the cops to do it disorderly on you. So that's not a good two-faced way of structuring your sanctity of sound and the peace that people can feel when they're laying down in their bed or when children are doing their homework, where dogs live and they're trapped and they don't know what the hell's all the noise and they're scared. You know, it's as simple as that. It's about decency and empathy, and as I've described, catcalling has sometimes been used as like a German religious, almost semi-pagan thing, but in general, most societies don't do that shit. The horns come out during war, and they're not meant to be employed in real estate tactics, but that's exactly what they're doing. And the real estate is the business that the cops are protecting when they're protecting the people doing that shit. Even real estate agents themselves are doing the shit, but they also, you know, get other people to do it, whether knowingly or just for funsies, and they don't really know why they're doing it, and they think they'll be able to do it forever, and then they'll pitch a gigantic temper tantrum when the cops finally actually twist the nozzle back to normal and stop the sound spout. But that's what it is. That's where and why, and that's how. And I'm glad I finally got that off my chest, because that's a combination of a lot of the shit that I've laid out in little pieces throughout these last episodes. Deadpool was my favorite comic. It probably still is my favorite comic / hero. But Ryan Reynolds and, oh God, Ryan Reynolds and Hollywood turned that shit so awful. Trust me, as somebody who has watched read a lot of the Deadpool comics, the Deadpool movies are terrible, awful. Now, I don't know about Deadpool and Wolverine. I haven't seen that one, but it's so soy. Everything Marvel is just incredibly soy. And the Deadpool comics are really funny and genuinely edgy in like a very intelligent and cool way. Some of them are a little off the rails, I will admit. But it's genuinely fun. I would strongly suggest getting a hold of some Deadpool comics. In fact, I got a lot of comics around. You know, I might consider selling those. My father's been talking about, hey, if you know, genuinely, he's been considering trying to sell them. So I might try to put them on the market sometime soon. See how that works out. But yeah, I read one of the Alien comics from like the Alien movies, and it's just like straight up dicks everywhere, all throughout like the alien ship and shit, like just dicks. And if you kind of look at the alien and how it's structured, it's like a dickhead with high heels on. Oh shit. Now, I found out that the Thule Norse, the Norse of Greenland, they weren't actually genocided. This is by the genetic studies. That is incredibly important to understanding history, to understanding where lactose tolerance first came from, and how it's likely the Caesars of Rome that were some of the first cow farmers in the entire area. The Thule Norse weren't genocided. They were integrated into the Inuits instead. Yeah, because 40% of the Inuit blood comes from a male Norse admixture. That means that they integrated diagonally into the Eskimo culture. It's a kind of a derogatory semi-slur, but I don't think anybody who's Eskimo is going to care that much. So, they're Inuit. And that's where actually the Norse of Thule went. They turned into Inuits. They turned into the people that live there now. So to get away from that and into something a little bit more, I guess, fantastical and interesting, Robute Guilliman is almost too perfect. But, and I love Robute. It's kind of like the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary is so perfect, but like Mary to Eve, Guilliman's light balances the Emperor's shadow. See, Eve was a penultimately important woman, but she still is represented as an immense shadow. Eve is cognate with evil. Doesn't mean that she is evil, but she is one of those reasons why evil is so present in the human race today. The Emperor is exactly the same. He introduced chaos into humanity in a way that nobody else was possible of doing before, by literally stealing fire from the gods and placing it into his son's chest. Angron first and foremost. So I thought that was quite interesting. That little juxtaposition, because Mary is one of the archetypes. There's Helena, Sophia, Mary, and Eve. That's the 4 archetypes of woman. And Helena is like the courtier who's fancy and goes to party and drinks and sleeps around, and likes poetry and likes romanticism and likes traveling. Sophia is the intelligence, the wisest, the most capable of creation in the various arts and sciences. Eve is the primal, the will to live, the will to breed, the will to, in a way, conquer. And Mary is perfection in woman form. That's the 4 archetypes you can study. Jung, and especially Marie-Louise von France. That's her specialty. is a lot of anthropocentric archetypes. Speaking of which, thinking that Khorne is the oldest chaos god is anthropocentric. Nurgle is the eldest, obviously. But Khorne is the kindest of the four, and here's why. He lacks the intelligence of Tzeentch. He lacks the sadism of Slaanesh. And he lacks the twisted corruption and faux kindness of Nurgle. I used to think Nurgle was the nicest. Boy, am I wrong. No, sirree. Nurgle might actually be... Well, no. Nurgle's the second worst. Slaanesh is obviously the worst, because that's like sadistic, infinite, never enough suffering for others, never enough sadistic pleasures for them. And then Tzeentch seems like the second nicest, because Tzeentch doesn't care as much about sadism as he's processing, thinking long-term. Sometimes he'll enact immense sadism if it's for the long-term plans. If it throws somebody off on their plans here, there, and the third, and it makes them direct their attention towards that suffering. But Khorne is the nicest, because he's honest, and he's simple, and he just wants to bash your skull in. It's that simple. And that's why, if you were to be invaded by one of the forces of chaos, you'd want to be invaded by Khorne. You probably wouldn't want to be plotted on by Tzeentch, but it's better than Slaanesh or Nurgle. And you certainly do not want to incur an invasion by Slaanesh. Oh, no, not that sick freak. Oh, hell no. And then Nurgle, it's like everything is utterly fucked. You know, it's all going to end in fire or corruption. And you can actually hide from the Khorne Berserkers somehow. You can manage it. They might nuke the planet afterwards, but you could actually survive. Whereas Tzeentch is probably too intelligent for anybody to be able to maneuver around. Oh, well, that's a good little capstone for this episode. Hope everybody enjoys their holiday. Happy birthday, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And also, happy birthday, loser Robbie Lee. You know, hope you have a good time rotting in hell for your fucking disgusting ways, you piece of shit. Alright, take care, have your chump day.